So, if you're building anything in the cloud, you know that security isn't just some feature you tack on at the end, it's the absolute foundation of everything. Today, we're going to get practical and dive into one of the most critical parts of that foundation: how to lock down your AWS account using identity and access management, or what we all call IAM. Let's get right into it.
But before we get into all the technical how-tos, let's just start with a really basic question. When you move your stuff to AWS, your data, your apps, who's actually on the hook for keeping it all safe? Is it you? Is it Amazon? The answer isn't as simple as you might think.
Because the reality is, it's a team effort. It's a partnership. AWS has this core principle they call the shared responsibility model, and this really sets the ground rules for how security works in the cloud.
Okay, so let's break this down, because this is super important. AWS is responsible for the security of the cloud. Just think of that as all the physical hardware and global infrastructure. The data centers, the servers, the cables. But, and this is the big one, you are responsible for security in the cloud. That's your data, your apps, and crucially, who you let in the door.
And that right there brings us to the most critical part of your job: managing who gets the keys to your kingdom. And in the world of AWS, those keys are your security credentials.
So what are they, really? Well, every single thing you do in your AWS account, everything, from spinning up a server to reading a file, it's all checked against a set of credentials. They're basically the bouncers at the club door, checking your ID and then checking the list to see what you're actually allowed to do inside.
And you have to know, not all keys are the same. There's a definite hierarchy. Way up at the top, you've got the master key, the skeleton key. That's the all-powerful root user. Then you have the day-to-day keys for your people or your applications. Those are your IAM users. And finally, you have these special short-lived keys that expire, which come from IAM roles.
Now listen up, because this might be the single most important rule in all of AWS security. Your root user has God mode. It can do anything, including deleting your entire account. Using it for daily stuff is like using the hotel's master key just to get into your own room. It's a massive, unnecessary risk. You lock that thing away and only use it for the very few tasks that absolutely require it.
So let's compare the two main types of keys you'll be dealing with. Over on the left, you've got long-term credentials, like access keys. The scary thing about these is they never expire. If one of these leaks, it is a permanent backdoor into your account until you notice and manually shut it down. But on the right, you've got temporary credentials from IAM roles. These are created on the fly, they last for a short time, maybe an hour, and then they just, poof, they expire. The security difference here is just night and day.
And hey, you don't have to take my word for it. This quote is pulled directly from the AWS official docs. The folks who built the entire platform are telling you loud and clear, use roles and temporary credentials whenever you can. It's just the modern, safer way to handle access.
But look, just using the right kind of keys is only half the battle. Security isn't something you set up once and then forget about. It's a living thing. You've got to perform regular health checks, audits, to make sure everything is still locked down tight. Which leads to the obvious question, right? Okay, so when am I supposed to do this? You can't just do it randomly. You need to have specific triggers that tell you, hey, it's time to look under the hood. So best practice is to schedule it. Do it periodically, maybe every quarter or twice a year. But you also need to do it immediately when things change. An employee leaves a company. You audit and remove their access right then. You stop using a service. Clean up those old permissions. And of course, if you ever think something fishy is going on, an audit is your absolute first step.
Okay, so your audit should start with the individuals. Look at every single IAM user and ask, is this person still here? Does this app still need this key? If the answer is no, delete it. If they don't need to log into the console, get rid of their password. If they aren't making API calls, get rid of their access keys. Be ruthless.
Next up, groups. Now, groups are great for managing permissions, but they can easily suffer from what we call permission creep over time. So check who's in each group. Does that person who moved to the marketing team really still need to be in the developers group? And then look at the permissions on the group itself. Make sure it only has what it absolutely needs. And finally, step 3 is reviewing your IAM roles. This is always a two-part check. First, you look at the trust policy. That answers the question, who or what can use this role? Make sure that list is still correct. Second, you look at the access policy. That answers, okay, and what can this role do once it's assumed? Make sure you're following that principle of least privilege, only the bare minimum permissions required.
As you're going through all this, you need to have the right mindset. Be incredibly thorough. Treat every policy like you're disarming a ticking bomb, because honestly, a misconfiguration can be just as destructive. Don't assume anything works the way you think it does. And please, keep it simple. A simple, easy-to-understand permission setup is always more secure than a tangled mess.
But what about the threats you don't even know to look for? You can't protect against what you can't see. And that's where logging and monitoring come in. This is your digital watchtower, scanning the horizon for trouble.
And AWS gives you some amazing tools for this. Think of it like this. AWS CloudTrail is the unchangeable logbook of everything that happens. IAM Access Analyzer is like a security guard that walks around checking for unlocked doors to the outside world. And then Amazon CloudWatch is your alarm system, monitoring for weird activity in real time and screaming when it finds something. If we just focus on one for a second, CloudTrail is the absolute bedrock of security visibility. It's the black box flight recorder for your account. It answers those critical questions in any investigation. Who did what, from where, and when? If something bad ever happens, your CloudTrail logs are the first place you'll go to find out what really went down.
Okay, wow, we have covered a ton of ground. So let's just boil this all down into a super simple action plan. The top 3 things you can go do right now to improve your security.
Coming in at number 3, make auditing a habit. Don't wait for something bad to happen. Put it on your calendar. Schedule it. Regular checkups are the only way to prevent that slow, dangerous permission creep over time.
At number 2, ditch the long-term static access keys. Seriously. Make a conscious effort to move your applications and workflows to use IAM roles and temporary credentials. This one change makes a huge difference and dramatically lowers your risk.
And the number 1, most important, do this the second this is over, action you can take, lock down your root user. Don't use it. Put a strong password on it, and then enable multi-factor authentication or MFA. In fact, enable MFA on every single one of your IAM users. It is the single most effective thing you can do to stop bad guys from getting in. And so that brings us to the final thought I want to leave you with. After all of this, just take a second and ask yourself, honestly, is your cloud foundation truly secure enough?